Good morning. I'm Frank Toms, a member of the Universalist Fellowship of San Miguel de Allende. I'd like to welcome all of you joining us today, wherever you are, whatever your beliefs, whoever you love. You are welcome here with us. We are a lively fellowship that serves our membership and our Mexican neighbor community. Today is very special. It is our 1-year anniversary presenting our Sunday services virtually by Zoom. The Sunday Service Committee's tireless efforts have allowed us to gather together. It has been a great blessing through Zoom services to stay connected with our members and friends across the US and Canada. In this challenging time, the coming of vaccines has brought great joy. In fact, when I was vaccinated in San Diego, it brought tears to my eyes. And I can't say enough to those on our fellowship's COVID-19 task force who have watched out for us to keep us safe. Indeed, we have been blessed. We invite you to look in today's order of service for announcements of activities and membership information. You can go to our website at UUFSMA.org and find a link to today's order of service, a link to easily sign in onto our Zoom services, donate to our fellowship, or link to our YouTube channel with recordings of today's and previous Sunday services. Please share our website with your friends and family too. After the service, we will not have our usual small breakout rooms. Instead, we will gather and socialize in one big room for a few moments after the service. Then we will take a break before the annual meeting, which begins at 12:30 on a different Zoom login, which you also can find and click on our website, UUFSMA.org. Please join us then. And now to our minister, Reverend Tom Rosiello, for opening words.
Good morning. Each Sunday morning, we set aside an hour or so to be together in a special way. We come together to look at the world from a higher point of view, to be challenged to be our best self, and to do our part to promote justice and peace, and to create again and again this beloved community, a community that exists not only here in San Miguel, but in the ether of Zoom across Mexico, the US, Canada, and even beyond. It is in our coming together that we make this time our sacred time. And we always enter into that sacred time by lighting a flaming chalice, the symbol of our faith tradition. In doing so, we are reminded that the divine light shines in all of us. And when we bring our light together with that of others, we light a common beacon which can bring light to the world. So this morning we light our chalice with words from the Christian Bible's Gospel of Matthew, where it is written, "You are the light of the world. No one after lighting a lamp puts it under a bushel basket, but on a lampstand, so as to give light in all the house. In the same way, let your light shine for all to see." Please now join in affirming that message in song, hymn number 118, "This Little Light of Mine."
Yeah, good morning. I'm Dan Newspiel, your fellowship president, and I add my welcome to all of you. I invite everyone to attend our annual membership meeting today after the Sunday service at 12:30 p.m. San Miguel time. There's a separate Zoom sign-in that's in your order of service. Now, I have a few thoughts from our COVID-19 task force, a group of health professionals and care team members with expertise relevant to this pandemic. For many of us in SMA, it's been a great weekend. Vaccines have finally arrived. We don't know yet when the second doses of vaccines will be available, but we promise we'll let you know as we have confirmed information. We believe at this time that those of you who were vaccinated here will need to go to the same location for the second shot. Though the second dose of the Pfizer vaccine is recommended as early as 3 weeks after the first one, there's no upper limit in time. So don't worry if your next dose is a bit later than 3 weeks. Meanwhile, stay safe and be grateful to the many Mexican health workers who are helping to protect us with this vaccination program. Now, please join us in reciting our covenant, which should appear on your screen. We respect the interdependent web of life and work for a just and peaceful world. We encourage the search for truth and meaning, strive for compassion in our relationships, and seek values that will benefit our lives and the lives of others. This is our covenant.
Respetamos todos los estilos de vida dentro de su red interdependiente y trabajamos por un mundo justo y pacífico. Alentamos la búsqueda de la verdad y la comprensión total. Nos esforzamos por mantener compasión en nuestras relaciones y buscamos valores que beneficien nuestras vidas y las vidas de los demás. Este es nuestro convenio.
Each week, we bring with us to this time of community the joys, the sorrows, and the concerns of our week. There are always sadnesses that we need to name, hopes we need to express, joys we need to share, and concerns that are certainly worthy of all of our attention. We take this time in our service to share these significant life events, and we light a candle for each, symbolizing that that person, that thought, that prayer is with us this morning. If you would like to have a joy, sorrow, or concern shared in an upcoming service, please email it to me. If you wish to share something this morning but have not emailed it in, you may still share it by typing it into the chat right now. Steve Story lights our first candle this morning for his brother, who has been valiantly fighting stage 4 aggressive cancer and who is now in hospice care in Columbus, Ohio. Steve was able to visit with him and return to San Miguel on Tuesday evening. Our thoughts go out to Steve's brother, Tom, to Steve and all his family. This next candle is a candle of sorrow and remembrance and sympathy. Many of you remember our guest minister, the Reverend Stephan Papa, and his lovely and vibrant wife, Pat, who visited with us for several weeks 2 years ago. Sadly, Pat passed away from cancer at the young age of 69 last week. I have written on behalf of all of us to Stephan, expressing our condolences to him and their family. And this morning I invite you to hold Pat, Stephan, and their family in your hearts. Over the past many months, especially since the onset of the pandemic. Violence against Asian Americans, especially women and the elderly, has been dramatically on the rise in the US and elsewhere. It has been fueled by irresponsible racist leaders trying to cover up their failures by blaming others. Words have consequences. Racist words have extreme consequences. This is a candle of solidarity with the Asian community and of condemnation of all speech that sparks race or hate. Like many of you who are over 60 years of age here in San Miguel, I received my first vaccination shot this week. It was a true joy to see how well organized, how kind and caring the people who ran the vaccination sites were. This is a candle of gratitude to them and to the Mexican government, and one of hope that everyone will soon be vaccinated. We light a final candle now for all the joys, sorrows, and concerns typed into chat, and for all those held deep in our hearts, but which remain unexpressed this morning. With support for each other, with love for all of those with whom our lives interconnect, especially those who for any reason are struggling, and with deep concern for our world and the issues and challenges it faces, let us enter into a time of silent reflection, meditation, or prayer. Amen. And now I would like to introduce a very active member of our board involved in so many things in the fellowship, Chris Chase, with an important message for you.
Good morning, everyone. Today's offering is a blue plate special. This means that aside from pledges, everything from today's collection will be donated to one worthy cause. Today, we support Cruz Roja, one of the most important institutions in San Miguel. Cruz Roja is an emergency service arm for our city. They respond to all 911 calls, provide free ambulance service, and are funded solely by donations and fundraising. Cruz Roja, because of COVID-19, they now have more expenses than resources and are teetering on the edge of not being able to operate. This would be catastrophic for San Miguel. As a community, San Miguel needs to raise $500,000 US or 10 million pesos for the 2021 year to support the very important life-saving work of Cruz Roja that they do every day, and more now during this pandemic. NGOs and social media platforms across San Miguel are uniting in an effort to raise funds for Cruz Roja to ensure that their work can continue. We would like to join them. Please think about how much you can contribute to this campaign. Any amount will help. And for those that can do more, a really good idea is donating our stimulus checks to this important cause. Remember, these are the people who provide help and hope when we are at our most vulnerable. Now it's our turn to support them. They need us now more than ever, and as we face the weeks and the months ahead with COVID-19. Please give generously. This morning's offering will now be gratefully received. Thank you.
From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and by this we live. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and by this we live.
We are Unitarian Universalists. We are people of many paths who are brave, curious, and compassionate thinkers and doers. Every day, people are inundated with information, overwhelmed by demands, and pulled by a culture that seeks to divide us from the web of life. Unitarian Universalism reconnects, bringing people together with meaning and inspiration. We are a house without walls, a congregation without spiritual limits, and a movement that calls you to put more faith in yourself, your community, and your beliefs. We are a faith that honors your mind, your heart, your journey. Simply put, we are a guided path towards a better you and a better world. Grounded in hundreds of years of thoughtful, religious communities, we are people of many generations, ethnicities, genders and sexualities, and spiritual backgrounds. People engaged in making the world a better place. People focusing on what really matters: love, justice, integrity, and hope. Unitarian Universalists have different beliefs, but shared values. We are Unitarian Universalists, and at the same time, we may also be agnostic, Buddhist, Christian, Hindu, humanist, Jewish, Muslim, pagan, atheist, believers in God, and those who let the great mystery be. The diversity of beliefs you'll find in a Unitarian Universalist community is one of our strengths. We're always learning how to see the world from a different perspective. What unites us are our core principles that uphold 7 real-world values: believing in the worthiness of every person, showing compassion and fairness, accepting others for who they are, growing through a personal search for truth, leading with democratic spirit, working for justice, and understanding that everything is interconnected. 7 days a week, Unitarian Universalists live these principles by doing. When we gather, we worship, reflect, and remind ourselves what matters most in life. Whatever our age, we learn to live with more wisdom, more awareness, more gratitude, and more soul. We show our values by showing up to answer the call for social justice. We have a track record of standing on the side of love for civil rights, LGBTQ equality, immigration reform, environmental sustainability, reproductive justice, racial justice, and more. Find what it means to live your deepest values out loud. Join us on this extraordinary adventure of faith.
As the video you just saw portrays so well, this Unitarian Universalist faith tradition of ours is a different kind of religion. A religion that has changed time and time again, always opening the door wider, always building new ways of being, of including, of doing the work of love and justice. Although we have a very rich history, we are constantly building new ways to speak to and meet the challenges of our time. It's not just at a denominational level that we are building new ways. When we are at our best, each church or fellowship is constantly improving itself, recreating itself, finding, building new ways to reach out to meet needs, to lift spirits, to create and sustain community. Here at the UU Fellowship of San Miguel, we are and always have been big dreamers and builders of new ways. We have asked several leaders from different periods in our 35-year history to talk about how they've been involved in building some of those new ways here. We're going to share words from a couple of them today and from others in services over the next couple of months. Today's service is about us, even celebrating us, not in a self-indulgent way, I hope, but in a way that reminds us on this annual meeting Sunday that we are a strong and dynamic organization built on a tradition of innovation and growth, and we are together preparing for a future. Later today will be our annual meeting, at which not only plans, projects, and budgets for the next year will be discussed, but a long-range and very exciting vision for our future will be shared. As you will hear from some of those who have loyally served this fellowship, we have made our vision real before, and we are on the road to do so again. And now, some thoughts on building new ways from John Simsarian and Eleanor Goodwin.
My name is John Simsarian. I have participated in the fellowship for 13 years and have been asked to comment on the theme of building a new way. This is a theme that is important to the fellowship because the fellowship is a dynamic organization that is always developing. I chaired for about 5 years the Social Action Committee, and during that time, we formalized the grant process and expanded funding to nonprofit organizations in San Miguel. Then in 2016 until April of 2020, a 4-year period of time, I had the honor of being president of the fellowship. I experienced a dynamic organization because during that 4-year period, which of course was prior to the COVID pandemic, the membership of the fellowship more than doubled. The income more than doubled. Again, this is during a 4-year period of time. The funding to nonprofit organizations more than doubled. We hired our first ever part-time minister, Tom Rosiello, a major accomplishment and change for the fellowship for the better. We expanded our neighborhood groups and our small group discussions. The care team extended its outreach and expanded significantly to support fellowship members. The Sunday Children's Program expanded. There was a new endowment fund established. We have a history of helping to start nonprofit organizations to support Mexicans. In 2018, the fellowship raised $38,000 to launch Caminamos Juntos, a program to support Mexican nationals and their families who were deported from the United States. I'm very proud of the role that the fellowship played in helping persons deported from the United States. Now, with the COVID pandemic, the fellowship continues to evolve and has taken on the charge of supporting its members during this difficult time, proving yet again that we are a dynamic organization building a new way. And we're pleased that so many of you are going to be involved in helping us to continue to build that new way. Thank you for this opportunity.
I'm Ellie Goodwin. I came to San Miguel in 2003 for the first time, and I found the UU Fellowship. It was meeting downstairs at the Aldea Hotel, and the service was a little rough. But in 2008, when my husband wanted to move here from the Washington, D.C. area, where I loved to live, I knew I could live here because of the UU Fellowship. By 2008, the services were more refined, and the attendance was about 70 in the winter and 40 in the summer. Now with Zoom, as you know, we have very sophisticated services with way over 140 people attending on most Sundays, and our numbers are growing. When I got involved, King Culp was president. He was a keen organizer and established the beginning of the committee structure that we now have. He asked me to chair the Sunday Service Committee, which I did for 7 years. During one of his terms, King held a brainstorming session at the Biblioteca, where we focused on how to make our fellowship more attractive to newcomers. The coffee hour, held for hours after the Sunday service, was born at this session. In 2014, Treasurer Phyllis Culp built into our budget money to pay a stipend for guest ministers to deliver half of our services, 26 a year. Until then, we were blessed to have 4 or 5 who were willing to speak gratis. For 5 years, as chair of the Sunday Service Committee, I recruited guest ministers from the U.S., Mexico, and Canada. Before long, we realized that with their growth, we needed a resident minister to tend to recruiting guest ministers, as well as presenting 13 Sunday services and tending to pastoral care. We hired Reverend Tom Rosiello to begin in January 2019, a very fortunate move. I am proud to say I was on the search committee. Tom gives us much more than we expected, and now we continue to grow and grow. When I first came to San Miguel, there was a robust care team led by Peggy Bell, one of the early leaders who is now gone but not forgotten. Peggy was president of the fellowship several times in the 1990s. After she gave the care team up, only about 2 members continued to visit other members in need. I remembered how effective the early care team had been, so during my 10 years on the board, I revived the care team that is so effective now, without my involvement, that residents of San Miguel who have never been to the fellowship clamor for help from their care team, which is available only for members and founders. Many UUs are introverts, and when I first began attending the fellowship, I came several times before I was able to get a greeting out of anyone. This has happened to me before in other UU churches, so I wasn't surprised. But from my perch on the board, I was determined that other newcomers would not have that same experience. It took a village of volunteers to greet, get to know, and arrange for continuing involvement of newcomers. Jim Harper, who is rolling off the board after 13 years of service, stood at the front door greeting, kissing, hugging, and handing out orders of service, all pre-COVID, of course. No one could say they were not welcomed. In 2019, our president, John Simsarian, arranged for a long-range planning process that involved written surveys and focus groups of members to glean ideas for the future. The very capable Jim Boots led this endeavor and produced a report that the board responded to. One of the most pressing issues from their members was the wish for tighter community. The attendance was growing so much that our coffee hour right after Sunday services was intimidating, like a huge party. Members wanted activities with smaller groups where they could get to know each other. So we started up small group discussions of interesting topics led by interesting discussion leaders. Neighborhood connections where members who live close by each other could get to know each other over potluck dinners. And we continued circle cenas where all attendees brought food to share, meeting on the first Monday of each month from any neighborhood. Usually there were several groups meeting on the same night. Among other small groups, we have some support groups. I belong to the fellowship's first women's support group, Mis Hermanas. I say belong because my husband died 2 years ago, and Mis Hermanas is my family. I have 10 wonderful sisters, all leaders at the fellowship. John Simsarian also arranged board retreats, and at one we decided to set up a welcome table in our meeting room with information about all our activities and with the opportunity for folks to find out more about the fellowship and to even join. Newcomers had a place to go for sure, where they would be greeted. I have had the pleasure of serving on the board during the presidencies of King Culp, Arlene Bennote, John Sievert, and John Simsarian. It was a wonderful ride. I have watched us grow in numbers, activities, income, social justice giving, and now the wonderful Sunday services that outshine any before. And in the early days, who would have believed that in the time of COVID, the fellowship would have a group of accomplished healthcare workers, including several physicians and experienced practitioners in viruses, guiding us through the pandemic. This past year, I have served on the Endowment Committee, the Nominating Committee, and the Envisioning Committee. The latter, envisioning the future, has given me a sense of what we might become, and it will be a ride that no one should miss.
One of the greatest joys of my being involved at our fellowship was creating a seating section for children at the start of our Sunday services. Having this right up front and facing all other attendees not only made it possible to quickly involve our children into the beginning portions of the service, but it also made it easier to share much happiness with adults attending. Not much compared to the joy of having our children walk through the aisle between the front and back of the room to go to their class. All adult eyes turned to the center, shining with big smiles on so many faces, and hands reached out to give a squeeze, affirming gratitude and goodwill for what was being offered. Building these bonds literally and figuratively involved many steps. Our minister created the opportunity for our children to carry the light from our chalice into their classroom by transferring the flame to a candle with a lantern that one child carried down the aisle to the children's classroom. By the way, carrying this lantern was a tremendous joy to anyone selected and came to be delicately orchestrated to model UU principles. Our pianist played a song as the children exited to which attendees sang along. This broad participation really validated the children's integral presence and the love of many generous volunteers who brought delicious cookies and muffins so that hands of young and old reached together after the service was sometimes literally the icing on the cake. Periodically, the children had a chance to deepen their connection with the adults after the service by sharing their classroom accomplishments in the midst of the adults. These opportunities not only kept our adults aware of the UU principles our children were learning, they also helped build bonds with our children and our young families. The collaboration of the adults in supporting the social justice programs initiated by our children was particularly uplifting for all involved. From donating beehives internationally to picking up litter off San Miguel streets, to collecting, bundling, and delivering rice to low-income elderly at the So Others May Eat program, our children have been nurtured and grown deeply as thoughtful, caring UUs.
Building a Better Way is a lot of fun and very enjoyable. And I'd like to tell you about an experience that I had as a UUFSMA volunteer when I was treasurer. I took over the books from Lee Veal, who had built a wonderful Excel spreadsheet, which was a great improvement, but he was the president and didn't have really time for that. So I put everything on QuickBooks Online, which allowed us to have other people access the books in case of an emergency. And I began to try to resolve a difference that the fellowship had at the time. We had a camp of people who wanted to focus entirely on social justice. And we had another camp of people who wanted to have a little more spiritual services and a little more minister-led services. So we finally came to the conclusion that I finally came to the conclusion that passing the basket wasn't going to get us anywhere. So we started a pledge drive, and it was highly successful. And with that drive, we were able to improve our social justice work and start building piece by piece towards a better spiritual experience. We asked for donors to give housing for visiting ministers and started to improve that. And that worked great. And then the next thing that we did was had a campaign to have the congregation approve paying our local Mexican musicians or local people who lived here. They weren't all Mexican, but they were non-members. And so we started paying them small stipends for their services, which made us all feel better too. Then the next step was to start budgeting small amounts for minister-led services. And that worked, and we got more used to having ministers and more of us liked it. Then I took a big step, and one year in a budget proposal, I put in enough money for stipends for 26 Sundays of minister-led services. And lo and behold, it was controversial, but it passed and the congregation loved it. So that's partially how we got to where we are today. In addition to that, at the same time, my husband King was president for 4 years, and he worked tirelessly on getting us legalized and got our nonprofit status in Mexico and the legal one. And then he also built a great committee structure. So with all that and everybody working together and having a good time, we built a base for what we have today.
Good morning. I'm Dick Snyder, and I'm happy to share some of the activities I've been involved in the past 14 years as a Unitarian Universalist here in San Miguel. Since 2007, I have worked with our wonderful Social Action Committee as a member, as a co-chair, and as the chair. I have also been a board member for 6 years. During this time, we have had tremendous growth in our membership. I feel that part of that growth is because of our continued commitment to our social action activities. Having a wonderful minister and many additional activities during the past years has also led to this growth. The amazing part of this growth is that we have maintained our historic commitment of spending at least 50% of our budget for our social action activities. In my mind, our growth is generated by this commitment of coupling social action with a great minister and increasing fellowship activities. We have been able to have our cake and eat it too. Social action and great services go hand in hand. Growth is the result. In a recent board survey, our members greatly responded that social action grants were very important to them. This tells me that we as a UU fellowship do really live up to the old adage of, let deeds, not words, be our adoring. Yes, our fellowship is a fellowship of deeds, and for that I am honored to be involved.
My name is Arlene Van Note, and I've been a member of this fellowship since 2006. And I've been on many of your committees. I've been on the board, and I've been your past president. I'm probably best known for disentangling the ACTA, which is the Mexican Articles of Incorporation. And important as that was, it allowed us to go forward as a legally recognized Mexican nonprofit. In 2014, we were growing rapidly, but we seemed to perpetually deal with the same or similar issues as each board came into existence, not knowing what had happened before. So we continued to govern with a group of strong, loyal volunteers who valiantly tamed challenges on a regular basis. However, there didn't seem to be a vision of the fellowship as an entity, a creature of its own construction. So in order to help us preserve our strong fellowship, we gathered and created permanent records, written records of the purpose and commitments of our committees, job descriptions for committee chairs and board members, printouts of major resolutions made by current and previous boards. The most intriguing project was kind of a puzzle with missing pieces where certain people had done certain jobs over the years, but no one else knew anything about them. So we searched out all those little bits of information from important things like passwords and who's the banker, the attorney, the accountant, and as minor as who has an extra key to the post office box downtown. So we managed to gather all that information and put it together in a guidebook for board members and committee chairs. On the member side, we instituted more personal interactions, such as roses for Mother's Day, hard-boiled eggs for Easter, which we won't do that one again. We had the first Christmas fair, and we had the first new member ritual at an annual meeting. So, and not to be less important, we dumped the styrofoam foam cups. That was great. Thanks to a hardworking, hands-on board for reviewing, discussing, and chewing on all of that paperwork, we have moved to a functioning organization ready to move into a great future.
We are building a new way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way, feeling stronger every day. We are building a new way. We can feed our every need. Every need. We can feed our every need. Every need. We can feed our every need. Start with love, that is the seed. We can feed our every need. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Without these, our world will die. Peace and freedom is our cry. We are building a new way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way, feeling stronger every day. We are building a new way. A new way, a new way, a new
Well, as you know, following today's service, you are invited and I hope will participate in our annual meeting. Everyone can attend, and all who meet the membership requirements have the right to vote on our leaders, our budget, and participate in decision-making on many other important issues that your fellow members have brought before us for consideration. The major decisions in this congregation are made either directly by its members or representatively by the people whom they have elected. This is not the usual way in most religious organizations. Most have a hierarchical structure with control coming from above, and although we enthusiastically take part in the UUA, our Association of Congregations, we collectively and democratically decide what happens in this member congregation, and so does every other UU congregation. If you've been at the fellowship for a while or elsewhere in the UU world for a while, that may just seem like the way it is, just the way a religious organization is run. But the very process we will engage in today is a new way for religion. Hundreds of years ago, our forebears saw that the corruption and abuse of power that hierarchical structures led to, and they built a new way. But this is just one way our tradition is building new ways. For hundreds of years, actually thousands of years, we have been building lots of new ways in the world of religion. Our form of religion, though inspired in so many ways from the various religious traditions that have been handed down to us, is not set in stone, is not God-given, but is created and recreated by us as our time and our place demands. We are always building new ways. Some in other faith traditions take comfort in the fact that religion for them is never changing. You know the words so often recited, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be. Those words bring comfort to some, but not to us. Look what's happening this week in the Catholic Church. After giving so many in the LGBTQ community hope and saying they were to be respected, the Pope refused to build a new way in that church after all, and instead re-announced what has always been the Catholic Church perspective. Same-sex relationships are sinful and therefore cannot be blessed by the Catholic Church. In the document issued by the Vatican, you can see the struggle of wanting to be more inclusive, wanting to hold on to LGBTQ Catholics, but not being willing or able to build a new way. How profoundly disappointing and hurtful this is for those LGBTQ folks who have stayed within the Catholic Church after reading hopeful signs from this Pope that he was willing to build a new way. Building a new way, you see, allows us to include more new people, people who enrich the fabric of our community profoundly. You know, right now, I'm teaching a course which many of you are attending, calling Exploring Unitarian Universalism. But the subtitle for that course could easily be Building a New Way. In the early days of the Christian Church, Unitarian and Universalist ideas were heresies, and the followers of those ideas were labeled heretic, a word which comes from the Greek word heresis, meaning taking or choosing for oneself. Unitarians have always lived up to that definition. For a long time now, refusing to accept ideas forced upon them by religious doctrine and insisting upon choosing their beliefs for themselves. Especially since the 16th century and the beginning of Enlightenment thought, Unitarians and Universalists have been building lots of new ways. Freedom to believe as one chooses. The idea that your theological beliefs do not exclude you from the beloved community, but are welcome to the mixed, has roots back to this time and perhaps is most eloquently expressed even earlier by our Transylvanian Unitarian forebear Francis David from the 1500s, who preached, "We do not have to believe alike to love alike." David was branded a heretic also and died in prison. But you know, in spite of repression, even up through the 20th century, Unitarians continue to build new ways in Transylvania, where today there are 400 Unitarian churches. Hundreds of years ago, our Universalist forebears rejected the Calvinist idea of a God that sentenced people to eternal damnation and found a new way of understanding the divine. The focus of that new way is captured in the expression that God is love, or that love is God, or that a loving God damns no one. And that idea was revolutionary, a new idea in Christian thought. These were very early ways for sure, but today our denomination continues to change and continues to build new ways. Since 1850, we have been ordaining women to the ministry. We are among the first to open our doors and soon thereafter ordain LGBTQ individuals. Our voices and actions still rise up against the oppression of these groups. And now, with a growing new understanding and commitment, we are endeavoring to build new ways to address racism, to examine our role in the treatment of indigenous people, to build a new anti-racist, anti-oppression way. We're seeking new ways to improve our relationship to our planet and to heal the damage we have done. You know, many times in my role as a minister and teacher and representative of this faith tradition, I have participated in some interfaith discussions, and a question often gets asked to me sort of like this. Where do the Unitarians stand on this issue or that issue? Well, of course, I speak for myself to the issue, but I point out that not all UUs will or have to agree with me. And I say something else, and this remark often really perturbs them, because they want to pin me down to a particular spot. I tell them that actually UUs don't stand, they move. For those who feel religious teachings should remain the same for millennia, and everyone should have exactly the same understanding of their religion, that doesn't often sit well. But for us, it's critical. I think we can say that the very hallmark of Unitarian Universalism is the practice of following the Spirit, the light of conscience, the needs of community, the calling of justice, wherever it leads. And that's not just on a national or international UUA level, but right here in this congregation as well. So that brings me to us here in San Miguel, and those people who join us via video who are so much part of our community as well. It brings me to the demands and the incredible opportunities of this time in this place. We're engaging right here, right now, in building new ways in so many areas, and we're challenged to build new ways in so many others. These are incredibly exciting times for this thriving, growing fellowship. As you heard from both John and Ellie earlier, we are a dynamic, growing organization and always developing new ways of taking on new projects, doing better ministry, helping more people, making our voices heard more and more on the issues of our time and place. You know, sometimes it seems like a lot. Sometimes we might think, well, you know, maybe the old ways are just good enough. But truth is, they never are. This past year, a dedicated group of fellowship members spent untold hours envisioning our future. You all received that report as part of the materials sent for the annual meeting, and it will be in a presentation this afternoon. In that report, you'll find ambitious and exciting goals that include addressing issues of space and staffing, of new programming creation and expansion of old, including developing our ministry, providing opportunities to deepen our spirituality, opening doors wider and being more truly welcoming, strengthening our social action work, better caring for our community in all stages of life, better caring for our Mother Earth and lightening our footprint upon her, building newer and stronger connections with other UUs in the US and in Mexico, and building bridges of common causes of justice and bridges of the universal language of music and arts. You know, we UUs really have an incredible message, an affirming message to share, a message that really speaks to so many people and is so relevant to life here in San Miguel. It's not a message that's just for retired gringos, but for many others, Mexicans, young, old, families, who are interested in a new way in religion. We can become a more significant part of this community. We can become a more multiracial, multicultural institution. The opportunity is there. Of course, to do so presents some challenges. But we can build a way not only to serve our gringo community, but to connect and create more broadly and create a more inclusive, beloved community. We're already starting on that journey. In fact, there are several newly formed groups like our Endowment Committee and our new Committee on Ministry that are working to build new ways forward for the future. There are also lots of new initiatives taking place in the board and on many other committees like the Sunday Service Committee and the Social Action Committee and others, initiatives that are exploring building new ways in all sorts of areas. With 62 new members in the past year, we're moving forward together. We're doing so with a vision. We're doing so with care and with urgency. Sometimes these new ways are small steps, other times giant leaps. Some are indeed expensive, while others have no financial price tag at all. But all are important because they help us to make real our mission and our principles. We're not a religion.
Gonna keep on moving forward. Keep on moving forward. Keep on moving forward. Never turning back. Never turning back. Sigamos adelante. Siempre adelante. Siempre adelante. Sin volver atrás. Sin volver atrás.
That turns just to the past for answers. As one of our hymns that we sometimes sing says, we do revere our past, but we trust the dawning future more. We build new ways on the solid foundations of the past. And you know, standing still is not an option. Being content with things as they are is not an option. And being oblivious to what is around us that needs to be addressed is also not an option. The call is for us to keep on moving forward, never turning back. Sigamos adelante, siempre adelante, sin volver atrás. Thank you for being with us today. We will have a short coffee hour for those who wish to stay, but we want you back for the annual meeting at 12:30 San Miguel time. So if you need to go grab some lunch, please do so. And remember, it's a different Zoom link for the meeting than for the service. And you can find it in chat and also on our website. You know, one of our 19th century ministers, Frederick Hosmer, wrote a text that was set to a very famous tune. The hymn, some of you know, is called Forward Through the Ages. It's sung to the tune St. Gertrude, which probably doesn't mean a lot to you unless you know that that's the tune of unchristian soldiers.
Yeah.
It's not an association that I particularly identify with, but the text actually has a very similar message to the song of Emma's Revolution, Keep on Moving Forward, Never Turning Back. So even though I thought about using that old hymn in today's service to fit the message, Emma's Revolution's words better capture the message in our time and our place. Still, I'd like to quote a bit of it as a reminder that our history has always been about moving forward. So to end today's service, to extinguish the flame of this moment, I thought I would share with you Hosmer's words. Maybe we could call it the 19th century version of Keep on Moving Forward. Forward through the ages, in unbroken line, moves the faithful spirit at the call divine. Gifts of differing measure, but hearts of one accord. Manifold the service, one the sure reward. Wider grows our vision, realms of love and light. For it we must labor till our faith is sight. Forward through the ages, in unbroken line, moves the faithful spirit at the call divine.
Gonna keep on loving boldly. Keep on loving boldly. Keep on loving boldly. Never turning back. Never turning back. Amaremos con pasión. Siempre con pasión. Siempre con pasión. Sin volver atrás. Sin volver atrás. Gonna reach across our borders. Reach across our borders. Reach across our borders. Never turning back. Never turning back. Vivamos sin fronteras. Siempre sin fronteras. Siempre sin fronteras. Sin volver atrás. Sin volver atrás. Gonna keep on moving forward. Keep on moving forward. Keep on moving forward. Never turning back. 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 Never turning back.
Peace.
We love you. Gonna keep on moving forward. Keep on moving forward.